Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Good topic for you today, interesting as well. Let's do it. What's a fact that you wish you didn't know? Some of these a little not safe for work. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I remember watching an episode of the show Monsters Inside Me, where the 16-year-old kid was doing something outside and a fly flew into his eye. It only made contact for about a microsecond, and it was enough time for it to lay eggs. After they hatched, they started eating his eye from the inside, and he was starting to go blind until a doctor finally figured out what was wrong. Just imagine that, getting your eye eaten from the inside and losing your sight, all because a fly very briefly made contact with you. Ever since I learned about this, I get really paranoid when there's a fly around my face because of the fact that this could possibly happen to me. It's illegal in India to find out the gender of your baby because so many prefer boys over girls. That your organs know where they're supposed to be and move on their own. During surgery, doctors will just stuff them back in and they'll rearrange themselves back to their proper spot. Wow. Also, the one about your main body's immune system not knowing your eyes are a thing, and if it learned about them, they would be considered foreign objects and be destroyed. Effed me up pretty bad because I've always had eye problems since I was a kid. Sitting here going, is today the day I go blind? Just how painful and torturous extreme radiation sickness is. Imagine feeling your muscles and organs dissolve inside your own body while skin just slogs off, while being fully conscious and feeling everything. After any significant natural disaster or conflict starts up, human traffickers swarm to the country looking for unattended children. Law enforcement will start watching ports of entry for the usual suspects. The usual suspects. My mom lives far from me, and we only get to see each other once a year. She's 65. Even if I'm lucky and she lives until 80 or so, I'm going to physically see her around 15 more times. The idea of it being so limited makes my stomach hurt. I guess the best thing that you could do is just try to make the most of that short amount of time you get. If moving one way or the other for either of you is impossible, just enjoy it as much as you can and write letters and correspond as often as you can. It makes a difference. We are possibly on the brink of medical technology and treatments losing 100 years of progress because new strains of bacteria are becoming antibiotic resistant, and finding new antibiotics is a slow process far outpaced by the amount of resistant bacteria. Imagine getting a minor cut on your hand and dying from it. Added benefit, our own immune systems have also taken a hit as well because our overuse of antibiotics has killed a lot of the good bacteria in our bodies that work with our immune system. In Dubai, I've witnessed the acts of human trafficking and illegal prostitution. I've tried my best to get it onto the light at the time I was there, but everyone there kind of aware of it already and said that no one can or will do shit here. Even then, the daughter of a crowned king, a literal princess, had tried to escape the country but was caught and brought back. I left the country the next week. Couldn't stand the thought of it. I was just released from a 5-week hospital stay, and I had multiple different roommates during my stay. One of them was a woman who had a massive stroke. She would cry and wail and get frustrated and rip out her catheter. She would poop herself and then tear into the diaper, getting into feces under her nails and all over herself in the bed. Her family would try asking her questions if she was in pain, if she was hungry, if she was uncomfortable. But the more agitated she became, the less she was able to communicate anything. She couldn't talk and just moaned and cried. It was absolutely terrifying. Her family would say that they understood how frustrating it was for her, so I'm guessing she was trapped in there. Her body just couldn't cooperate and left her stuck in this useless husk. I really hope she wasn't aware in there. It sounds awful, but I hope her brain was damaged enough that she wasn't having coherent thoughts. Any way you look at it, a stroke is scary. Even though she kept me up all hours, I just felt really sorry for her. She was showing slight improvement though. She had an NG feeding tube taken out because she started being able to chew her food. I briefly had an NG tube during my stay and it was awful. I freaked out so badly they had to remove it because I felt like I was drowning and couldn't breathe. Total anxiety attack. And you can feel the tube in your throat, so it feels like a huge lump constantly choking you and causing you to gag. That stroke lady had her NG tube for weeks, and I couldn't stand it for longer than about 45 minutes. It was torturous. I really hope she just wasn't capable of the kind of thinking that would make her aware and cognizant of being trapped in a completely broken and useless body that she was unable to control. Absolutely terrifying. Hospital-acquired delirium is insanely common in hospitalized elderly patients. Ever been woken up in the middle of the night by a hospitalized loved one, thinking they're at home, in a hotel, in a different hospital, rambling about shit that makes zero sense, and perhaps thinking it's a different year? I am every night, and I'm starting to lose my effing mind. But you know what's effing hilarious? My grandma at 96 handled 2 weeks in the hospital with no issue, whereas my 68-year-old father literally acts like a patient with dementia. Maybe he's developing dementia. I don't know. Again, I'm losing my effing mind too. How big anglerfish can get. They're not massive, but can definitely get larger than I'm comfortable with given the size of the teeth. There's something like 2% of American prairie left, and it's still shrinking. A couple weeks ago, Rockford Airport was just given permission to expand over Illinois' best and nearly last prairie. Native prairie species sequester carbon far more efficiently than trees and support more biodiversity, not to mention their ability to stop erosion. Not only are we destroying prairie for human expansion, but we also went too far with planting trees and fire suppression, so areas that should be prairie and savanna are just planted with trees because we just assume that the more trees the better. Don't even get me started about people's wildflower gardens that help very few insects and animals as compared to actual native plants. I wouldn't say that I fall into the category of crunchy granola type nature person, but I might fall more into the world of like a Rooseveltian type protect sacred lands and national parks. But the overdevelopment of the country, especially just in my own neighborhood, is disappointing to say the least. It's like people just want to make money and not care about tomorrow. A guy I used to work with had either a condition or got a virus, I don't remember which. This was about 20 years ago, that attacked his spine. He went to bed fine and woke up the next day totally paralyzed from the waist down. He spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair. There was no slow progression, just walking fine one day and completely unable to walk the next. When cats sense they're not long for this world, they'll leave to go die somewhere outside, alone. I wish mine would have just stayed at home. That animals get abused by sadistic assholes every day, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I don't just mean food industry horror, I also mean casual abuse of pets, abuse by sadistic people of strays for pleasure, out of boredom, neglect of pets, horses being starved to death, old animals being abandoned, etc. The animal rights laws are way too weak, even in the strictest of countries in my opinion. I can't unknow it, and I can't do anything about it, and if I think about it too much, I can't handle it. Bamboo shoot torture. It's not well documented enough, but it was allegedly an East Asian torture method where a person would be tied up above growing bamboo shoots, and they would be left there to eventually be impaled by them. Bamboo shoots grow a lot faster than you might think. Japanese soldiers during World War II were also accused of using this method during the war, though this is also still alleged rumors. Every single female at birth on my father's side got first pregnant at 14, had a miscarriage, then had their first child at 16, at least up until my older sister. She is 16, and so far has never gotten pregnant. Let's hope it stays that way until she's ready, because most of my dad's family dropped out of high school to take care of the child. Also, the day of my older sister's 16th birthday, our father called her, begging her to give him grandbabies ASAP. I hate my father's side of the family. This is why I don't consider him as my father. How quickly officers in the Navy will turn a blind eye to crime on their watch, on their base, to their cadets, to civilians, to families, and how they and their staff will mutually keep each other in the dark. The best officers are kept in the dark on purpose. They know things happen, but will never know the duration, extent, frequency, and severity that crimes occur. It's important to keep the front men polished and ignorant so they can defend the institution with rank and leadership training. It's difficult to argue with a trained officer, even if they're wrong or uninformed. That time really does go by faster as you age. When you're younger, comparatively, a year does not feel as long to the previous years because you've only been alive for a short time. But when you're older, years seem shorter comparatively because you've been alive a lot longer. Hopefully I've said that in a way that makes sense. Today I found out that female mummies are more decomposed than male mummies because their female relatives would keep them in their homes for 3 to 4 days after death to make their bodies less attractive to the embalmers. It never truly ends for women. No matter how healthy you are, you can still die from a blood clot or die from a brain aneurysm at any moment. A friend from college said his sister passed out of nowhere, even though she was a track star, and one day she collapsed, never woke up. Where do I start? Every day, approximately 25,000 people die from hunger or hunger-related causes. Over 70 million people are currently displaced from their homes due to conflict, persecution, or disaster. Human trafficking is a global problem, with millions of people being forced into various forms of exploitation, including labor, sex, and forced marriage. Climate change is causing irreversible damage to the planet, including rising sea levels, more frequent natural disasters, and extinction of plant and animal species. Mental health disorders are on the rise, with depression and anxiety being the leading cause of disability worldwide. In many countries, children are forced into labor or military service and denied access to education and basic health care. Women and girls are often subjected to gender-based violence, including SA, domestic violence, and forced marriages. Income inequality is increasing, with the world's wealthiest individuals controlling a disproportionate amount of wealth and resources. Racism, discrimination, and prejudice continue to leading to inequality in various forms. Many governments around the world are corrupt, many, haven't all, with leaders abusing their power and suppressing dissent. Well, you brought up a bunch of them, and they're all valid and they're all terrible in their own way. And unfortunately, there's not much an individual can do. A large group of people used to be able to make a difference, but that's becoming more difficult. I think all you can basically do at this point now is to work with community outreach and organization, and most importantly, take care of the people you can immediately impact, your family and your friends. Work toward a common good there. All right? Your own immune system can blind you. Basically, your eyes, as well as a few other parts of your body, including the testes, weirdly enough, experience a phenomenon called immune privilege, whereby they can have foreign antigens introduced without your main immune system kicking in. In most healthy people, that's a great thing. Stops you from having major vision problems when you're sick, but throw in an autoimmune disease and things can get ugly fast. In some cases, that immune privilege breaks down and suddenly your immune system freaks out and sends all it's got to the eyes, which can lead to vision loss or complete blindness. That human skull fragments boomerang sometimes when you get shot in the head. My husband has to clean up dead bodies sometimes, and he said suicides where they shoot themselves are the worst for so many reasons. One of them being that the skull fragments will go off in weird directions, and you have to check everywhere to make sure their family members don't find the skull fragments weeks later.